introduce you all to the one who has been described by MS Dhoni as the best thing to happen to Indian cricket, an international cricket coach, leadership consultant, and a remarkable personality, Mr. Gary Kirsten. During his 11-year career as an international cricket player, he played 101 tests and won 85 ODI matches for South Africa. Gary Kirsten went from one of the most successful cricket players in the world to one of the most celebrated coaches in the world by leading our Indian cricket team to a World Cup victory in 2011. He then returned to South Africa as coach of the national team, and during this time, South Africa achieved the #1 position in ICC Test ranking. He has also coached many franchise teams worldwide and is mentor and a batting coach for IPL team Gujarat Titans. Mr. Gary is also a philanthropist. He founded Gary Kirsten Foundation in 2013, which provides cricket opportunities and a healthy alternative for disadvantaged communities in South Africa and beyond. Joining Gary Kirsten today, we have Mr. Kushan Sarkar. Mr. Sarkar is a special correspondent with Press Trust of India. He has covered 3 ODI World Cup, 3 T20 World Cups, and around 50 test matches. He has also co-authored the book Mission Domination on India's Test Series win in Australia. We are truly honored by having these two brilliant minds on the show. We also have with us today the Director of VJTI, Dr. Dhiren Patel sir, and the Dean of Student Activities and Alumni, Dr. Rohin Darwala sir. Director sir, I request you to kindly say a few words.
Okay, good evening everyone, and as we have two great personalities, Sir Gary Kirsten and Mr. Kushan, and they will be, specifically, Kushan would be take us through this, 45 minutes or an hour, whatever the time prescribed, and we would have a direct, straight from the heart kind of, words and suggestions and advice and inspiration from Sir Gary Kirsten. Thank you. Welcome to VJTI.
Thank you, Director sir. Now, I would hand it over to Mr. Kushan Sarkar for a memorable conversation with Mr. Gary. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Aditya. And I can't say how big a privilege it is to be a part of this session. And I would especially like to thank the Director of VJTI, Mr. Patel. Thank you, sir, for this honor. And it's been like, I've been a journalist for the past 18 years and actively covered Gary Kirsten's successful and most memorable stint with the Indian cricket team. And it was such a privilege to know him, to interact with him during our media conferences and know and pick his brains. And also later when he joined the IPL franchise team, Delhi Capitals. So today, the session that the students have told me is about the advancement of technology in sports, and who else but Gary, who has been a pioneer in this field when it comes to cricket, to talk us through this session. And hi, Gary. Welcome to this session. And my first question to you is that, as a cricketer, as a kid growing up in South Africa, then being a test cricketer, and now as a celebrated coach for more than 10 years, 15 years, how have you seen the advancement of technology in cricket? Like the evolution in the cricketing hemisphere, what has been the role of technology that you have seen as a kid, as a cricketer? In 1992, we saw the third umpire rule coming in, Tendulkar being the first one to be run out in South Africa, to this day when there is DRS. So if you could take us through the journey in your eyes.
Yeah, I think there's been a massive improvement in the game by using technology, and I think that's very exciting. We always used to say as players, if we could eliminate the really bad unforced error by an umpire, it would bring a lot more consistency into the decision making. So the use of technology has really helped that. Very seldom these days do you get a really ranked bad decision by an umpire. In fact, hardly ever. And technology has helped the game create consistency in decision making. There's much less gray area. There's much less bias. And I think it's been incredible, the different types of technology that are used to help make decisions on the cricket field. if you think about it, we've got a whole lot of different types of technologies at play just in one delivery if there's a review going on, and I think that's really exciting.
And to take this question further, do you think that the decision review system has been the best thing that has happened to cricket?
Yes, absolutely. I just think that it has just brought a measure of consistency through the decisions. Let's remember, cricket's quite a technical game. There are more than 10 ways that you can get out in the game of cricket. And there's a lot of different variances. An LBW is quite a contentious way of getting out. And I think the fact that we can now use the technology that is available, and as you made the point, it wasn't available 20 years ago. It's just made the game a better spectacle.
But Gary, since you are a coach also, and as a coach, you know that for a team, there's a lot at stake when important decisions don't go your way. Like what exactly, like Shane Warne always says that umpire's call, he has always found it a gray area. Either it is out or it is not out. It cannot be both at the same time, depending on an umpire's call. So this is something I believe even the students who are also fans in general want to know, that what exactly do you think about the umpire's call and the margins that are there in place?
Well, let's remember that before we had technology, you would have heard the statement, give the benefit to the batsman. So basically by offering an umpire's call, you're giving just a little bit of margin of error for the umpire, which is very similar to give the benefit of the doubt to the batsman. So I think what the officials are trying to do is they're trying to say, it is very difficult for an umpire to determine where the ball is going to hit the wickets. The fact that it hits the wicket is one decision that you got to make. Where it's going to hit the wickets is not an easy thing to determine, is it? So, my view on it is that the umpire's call was introduced in such a way that it just gave the umpire a little bit of margin in the decision making, which I don't think is a bad thing. And at the end of the day, what we have been able to achieve through technology in cricket is we've taken away the really bad decision. Yes, there are 50-50 calls and there is a bit of variance in them, and we understand that. But I think they've done a great job at taking away a decision which is genuinely given out and is not out, or vice versa.
And which one? Aditya, do you have a question?
Yeah, Kushan, sorry, this is Dhiren Patel. Gary, again, this is, take it easy, but in recent South Africa-India series, where the test match was at the very precarious position, there was one decision that happened which has gone in the favor of South Africa after umpire has given the person out, and then there was a lots of talk about doctoring of technology. Now, again, it's a subjective opinion, but at the same time, do we do as a cricket fraternity some checks and balances, including the audits, including the neutrality of operators who, manufacture within the small time frame? The decision, specifically, it was related to the bounce of the ball and through the, I am sure you know this. So can you tell something on this, that how we could, remove even some controversy which is still there, and some captains are always telling that what is happening?
Well, I think the improvement of the technology, as technology improves, it's going to make the decision making even better. So, for example, a bouncing ball into the player's hand in a catch, we haven't yet got a technology which proves if the ball bounces and hit the ground or it bounced on his fingers or not. So what we're doing is we're making a subjective view on what we see. But I think the technology will eventually get there where we can find conclusive evidence that the ball would have hit the ground. And I think that time is coming.
Yeah, for this reference, I may have not presented my question well. The decision was about bouncing the ball going over the wicket. It was LBW decision.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'm just using the technology. I'm using an example, not necessarily the one you suggested. But the same goes for any decision that if you've got an opportunity for a subjective opinion, then we have to use the subjective opinion until such time that there's technology which makes the evidence absolutely conclusive. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I think in all technology in sports, there is still a subjective opinion because an official needs to make a decision on the rule. And there might be a slight variance in how people determine the rule. So you will get a variance in decision making. You just can't get away from it.
And Gary, an extension to this question is like, do you feel that at times the boards with lesser deep pockets actually cannot afford a more conclusive technology like a hotspot and everything? That becomes a bit of a problem. A Cricket Australia can afford a hotspot. BCCI can do it probably, but a Bangladesh Cricket Board might not be able to probably have an access to the costly mechanism that is much more foolproof.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is a problem, but it's the same for both sides, the technology, isn't it? So whatever's available, you use. If there's less technology available because a country can't afford it, then you go back to a little bit more inconsistency in the decision making, which is unfortunate. I think we're getting used to now watching cricket where the decision making is fairly consistent and fairly good. And sorry, the other thing that I would want to raise about technology is that I think it has engaged the fans and a little bit more. They get involved in the decision making. There's a nice entertainment angle to that. We all sit down and Kohli gets hit on the pad. They do a review on it, and suddenly we're all in our living rooms making the decision ourselves. So I think that's brought an exciting angle into the sport as well.
Since we have some of the brightest future engineers, we are the discussion is part of an engineering colleges program. So obviously the question now veers to data, something that you must be knowing about, like the more and more increase of use of data in cricket and in general in sports. Like, how do you see it? Is it taking the human element of coaching out? Because when you coached India, probably data analyst was there, a video analyst was there, but the extensive use of data probably wasn't there, I believe, 10 years back. What it is now, like some of the IPL franchises, you're a part of RCB, I believe, where they had a professional analytics man working with RCB team before the auctions when you were with the RCB. So just tell us, like, how do you see this over and over depend? Would you call it an over reliance on data, or it's a good thing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Do I repeat the question, Gary?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. I'm able to hear you.
Okay. We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Gary, I think your
audio is not clear.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Now we can hear you. The video is gone, unfortunately, but we can hear you.
Yeah, the analytics into the game is becoming more and more relevant now, because the game has become so scientific, especially the short format game, and there's a real need for players to be able, so for coaches to be able to make more informed decisions around the strategic play for each team. So pretty much every team is using analytics now at the moment, and that would be on building team strategy, that will be built on recruitment, and there's some really good data being presented to coaches in terms of the decisions that they need to make. So I think most coaches now are embracing data and the use of it. I still think, as you make the point, there is a human element to it that's never going to go away, and that's the beauty of sport. the one thing that data cannot do is they cannot determine the mental state of a human being and how they're going to make decisions. It's never going to happen. But what data can do is it's a great aid to coaches in helping them make the decisions that they need to make. Many of you would have be familiar with the book called Moneyball, which was the first book that kind of came out in baseball analytics, where they built a recruitment strategy around the data very successfully.
Around
And
analytics.
I think that, and I think that was the beginning point of professional teams using analytics to that level and that depth to make decisions.
But taking your question, like you made a great point about the mental state, but also apart from the mental state, Gary, supposedly, I just want to give you a practical example. Supposedly a player is playing in the Big Bash and he is hitting left arm spinners, or for that matter, he has hit 26s in 5 games. And you know that he's good against spinner on those Australian pitches. But is there a necessity that that Big Bash player, when he plays on a tacky Chennai surface or a surface like supposedly Pune, will he have that same kind of effect? Like we have seen over the years, like this time's IPL auction, it has a trend that Big Bash players, earlier teams and owners would just vie for the Big Bash performers. This time there hasn't been too many Big Bash performers who have got big deals. So do you think that that part is also there, that you always cannot rely on data?
Yeah, I think what's happening is that the data is becoming so rich now that, when recruiting a player, international player into the IPL, for example, the analysts will look at conditions that are very similar to the IPL and then look at his performances there. I still think there's a little bit of emotion attached to recruitment at the moment. So guys that are typically in good form are ones that all the franchises are interested to look at. But I think the smart players are generally the guys that are trying to look at players that bring value to a team in a variety of different ways, and not only just looking at current form as an indicator to whether it's a good signing or not. And
here, like, I want to come to the coach Gary Kirsten. Like, when you took over the job of the Indian team, it had so many superstars. Like you were taking it, you are yourself a celebrated player, obviously, and you are coming after a tumultuous phase in Indian cricket, and you were taking over after the Monkey Gate thing also in late 2007-8. So tell me, like, the process. Like, every player that I speak to of that generation, they said that Harbhajan Singh told me a thing that I can never forget, that Gary Kirsten made me a better human being. I don't know how good a player I was, but Gary Kirsten made me a better human being. He told me that probably the best mental space I was there as an international cricketer were the 4 years when Gary Kirsten was in charge of the Indian team. Like, what exactly did you do with the mind of the player? Like, you were there, Eric was there, you two had a great team, and obviously Mahi was there. So how did it function, the process? Give us a sneak peek into the process of building a world champion team.
Yeah, I just think we became very organized in how we did things. So, we put a lot more detail into our preparation. To give an example, Harbhajan's a good one. I challenged him and I said, you haven't got a test match 100 yet. And the reason why is because I don't think you work hard enough in the nets on your batting. So I was prepared to challenge him to extend his thinking around his game and what was possible. And I think that's what we did with the Indian team, is just create an environment where people could thrive, so they enjoyed themselves, but also I think they had, each player had real purpose in terms of what to achieve, because there was a bigger purpose. We all enjoy success in community. We enjoy success when we're doing well as a group of people. And, whilst everyone is striving for individual success in any avenue of life, at the end of the day, the most fun you're going to have is when you are making a contribution to a bigger cause. And I think that's what we were able to achieve with the Indian team. And all those players started to feel that their contributions were adding to a bigger cause other than their contributions just being good for them. And we always used to use the analogy, we focused our attention on playing cricket for the badge on the front of the shirt, not on the back of the shirt. And on the back of the shirt were the names of the individual players, but on the front of the shirt was the Indian badge. And guys started to represent the Indian badge, not themselves.
I know that those who are listening to this program are some of the future leaders in the times to come. So you saw a leader in Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He was a young leader when he took over and then became probably one of the greatest captains that the history of cricket has ever seen. What made Mahendra Singh Dhoni such a special leader? Captain is a different word, leader is a different word. He was probably a leader. So if you could give us a sense into how he became a leader that he became.
Yeah, a very easy to answer that. He was just very simple in his processes. He didn't overcomplicate things, but yet he had a great brain in understanding how to make performances. And then he had a great emotional capacity to stay calm in the most pressurized situations. And he stayed calm because his brain wasn't being taken over by emotion. His brain was taken over by strategy and about thinking and about what to do in this situation. So that's why we'll always make the point he was really cool and calm under pressure. And that was because his mind was so focused on what he needed to do rather than chasing a result or chasing the performance.
How big an element is, do you think, Gary, is man management in today's coaching and guiding and mentorship job?
Man management is very, very important. In fact, I would say that it's probably principally one of the most important things that you could do as a coach of a cricket team. Your ability to be able to get the best out of people is one of the great skills. What I do now is as a coach, I match up the use of technology in my coaching. And I match that up with my ability to be able to build relationships and to understand where players are at. And it's a wonderfully powerful combination. When you have on your fingertips a real understanding of how a player performs through the numbers, but then also an understanding of how he performs mentally. And when you can match the two, it becomes a very powerful force.
And in this regard, I'd like to know that, do you think that Test cricket, it's seen only there will be 2 to 3 or 4 probably at max good Test nations playing good Test cricket? India, England, Australia, maybe New Zealand and South Africa. Or do you think because T20 is taking over, people have lesser time, the youngsters, the patience, the ability to sit through 6.5 hours for 5 days, it's really diminishing?
I still think there's a real demand and price on performing well in a Test match. I still think there's a demand on that. And I think that's particularly exciting. I mean, listen, the player has got 2 dilemmas. One, he's got, I want to play Test cricket for my country. And the other one is I want to earn as much as I can in the short period of time that I have as a professional. And those are the 2 dilemmas that they are faced with. And I think the best of the group are trying to do both. But I think the game is moving towards specialization in one format or another. And unfortunately, the players are not going to be able to get away with that. They're going to have to make decisions. Are they going to be, seasoned Test players, or are they going to give it their best in the shorter formats of the game? I think the techniques that you are seeing now in short format cricket aren't going to match up in Test match cricket, and they're going to get exposed. So the players that are able to adapt to both are really your top echelon, because they've got strong, basic, fundamental techniques that can handle the rigors of test match cricket, and then they can adapt to the one-day version. But if you go the other way, I think players are generally struggling to build test match technique on the back of, strong attacking options as a T20 player.
So do you think David Warner is an aberration? Started as a
David
T20
David Warner's a good example of Virat Kohli, another one of guys that have been able to adapt across the formats, but they built their success on test match cricket initially. Or the ability to play test match cricket, should I say.
So here, another question that comes to mind is that when we're talking now that you are a part of franchisee cricket, you have coached T10 sides also, you have been a part of Delhi Capitals, RCB, and now a part of Gujarat Titans. Give us a sense that is T20 cricket going to be like EPL, like the European football, like you have a World Cup in every 4 years or a Euro in every 4 years, and there would be some international FIFA friendlies in between. But the real deal is the EPL, the La Liga, the Bundesliga, or the Serie A. So is cricket going that way, where you'd have a dedicated CSK fan, you'd have a dedicated MI fan? It already has, but that will be the fan, and probably only World Cups will remain relevant. The bilaterals will die its natural death.
Yeah, I can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the 50 over game is under threat. I must be honest with you, because I think the T20 game is alive and kicking and doing really well. And Test cricket's never going to go away because it's the soul of the game. But I think the 50 over cricket is losing its identity, and maybe we just will have iconic events that will become the priority rather than these bilateral tournaments, which are irrelevant and not that interesting.
And here, probably I would also like to know about that any new technological, since this is a technological institution. So we would again ask a few questions about technique. Like for the modern day coaches, like what are the technical proficiencies that you see they need, apart from the fact that they need a solid coaching skills and they need to know the subject well? Apart from that, what are the technical areas you think that modern day coaches, if they're trying to take up active cricket coaching seriously, they're going to pursue? What are the things they need to do, do's and don'ts of a modern day cricket coach?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think it's becoming a very, very detailed position at the moment. And I get particularly annoyed when I see media around the coach doesn't have a relevant role to play in the life of a cricket team or a cricket player, because I think the role of a coach has become a lot more professionalized now than it's ever been. Even when I started way back in the 90s, the role of the coach wasn't as relevant as it is now. But the first thing that I want to say about the role of a coach is that if the team doesn't do well, the first person to get fired is the coach. And it's interesting why they do that, because they find they find that in that space that the coach is the one that actually holds the strings to the success of the team, and they're right. But then give the coaches their due in terms of their responsibilities. And that's why I'm very excited at the moment, because I run an online platform called CoachEd, which is a coach education platform where young coaches get access to coach education online and via a learner management system, which can be done completely online. And it's really exciting to be able to offer that, because we know the importance of coaching. If you talk about how to understand recruitment, if you talk about how to build strategy across the 3 different formats, if you talk about how to build mental models for players when they're battling with form, if you talk about how to plan for a season with a squad, you can talk about how to deal with adversity in a team, how to deal with debriefing matches, and the kind of things that you need to present in your KPI system that you create. So the coaching is properly detailed, and our platform offers that to coaches, and they can get access to that information and become good coaches straight away.
And another question that I have over here, and this is a personal question, and I take permission from Aditya, who is the coordinator, to ask this question about cricket bats. Like when you played, Gary, Granix, and all these companies, or Stuart Surridge, they had English willows and a different kind of cricket bat. You had those sixes, and now when you see the piece of wood that a Virat Kohli or a David Warner uses, the sweet spot, the edges are as big as the sweet spot. Do you think that at times there needs to be a standardization of cricket bats if we want the game to be fair?
Yeah, I unfortunately need to go shortly, so if you could maybe make it one more question after this, and then I'll need to leave. Surely. But in answering that, yes, I agree with you that I do think there should be some form of standardization, because the game, certainly the short format game, has been weighted too much in favor of the batsman. And that's why you would have seen in the recent IPL, the biggest purchases went to the bowlers, because there's so few that are able to deliver performances in the really tough environment of small boundaries and big bats. So I would like to see some form of standardization where the bats are made slightly smaller. I think that's a good thinking on your side, and certainly something I would like to, I think would just neutralize and level the playing fields a little bit, which is very necessary for the game.
And one last question, since we are running out of time, is that what, according to you, in IPL, or for that matter fact, during big tournaments like World Cup, a champion team and another also ran, what's the difference you find, the margins? Like what makes the difference between why a CSK wins or goes to the final so many times, or Australia wins so many global trophies? Like what is the difference that these champion teams have from another team, from other teams?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would answer that by saying that some like CSK, for example, they've built a good formula around how they play T20 cricket, and they've got continuity in their recruitment program. So that generally all the players have been similar for a long period of time. Australia have got a really good system in their entire cricket structure, so they're always producing good players. So I think there's some learnings, from other teams to see the consistency and performance that these teams have.
Okay, thank you, Gary. It was a privilege talking to you, and the session now comes to an end. Like we could continue. If it's a discussion of cricket, we can continue on and on, but time is of paucity. So I would like to take leave from all you guys. We had a wonderful session, and thank you, Gary, Kirsten, and thank you, Dean Sir of VJTI, and the students for having me on this show. It was an honor, absolute honor, to host this show. Thank you.
And thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kusan, can we continue for a while?
Yeah, surely.
Okay. So, Kusan, let us, now we will have little conversation. I brought out that point, and there was a much talk about, one was the affordability, as you said, that Bangladesh cannot afford some technology. Now I am coming to the operators and owners of those technology, which I am sure that when we hire, they come from Western world to the stadium, and then they operate, and then sometimes I see that there is always a bias. In fact, that is my feeling, and that is.
And your feeling is right, sir.
Yes,
your feeling is right.
So
your feeling is absolutely right. It happens. With the Australian cameramen, with the British operators,
yes,
happens when actually there are times when Indian cricketers have had valid questions and
reservations.
Like Virat, you can always debate whether Virat's attitude was right, or whether going there or talking like that was right or wrong. But from the place where he was coming, it has happened again and again. Probably we do not know We haven't seen. This time it was, since a test match was at stake, he lost it completely, and probably he was also coming to the end of his captaincy. The mind works very differently when you are on the edge. So probably he lost it. But the point he was making wasn't actually wrong. For their contention, what Supersport channel, they issued a statement later. They said that Hawkeye, the technology Hawkeye, is basically a standardized, Hawkeye is a company that is associated with ICC. So whenever Hawkeye is producing its software material, it is same what is provided to Star Sports or any production that is happening in India and what is happening in South Africa. That is their defense, which I know.
I don't agree.
Which I believe the Indian team didn't buy that argument. So they have their grouse. Yeah, that is sure. And you're on point on that.
Yeah, many times we observe that whenever it takes too much time, I always feel that they are trying to, look at a various outcome and then pushing the outcome which could be beneficiary to them. Them means, when I say them, that is always subjective. I mean, people can be bought and so the operators are. So that's where
I have heard, like, no proof, but I have heard that frames have been changed.
Yes. So no, then the next question is, do we have a standardization and auditing process in place, which before the start of the match, they should do some test case and then verify that, yes, this is the bounce, this is, because on that day, the decision was, in fact, the umpire also expressed his annoyance.
Yes. Mariah Erasmus was really aghast that that can go up. Yeah. The bounce, like, he is judging it split second, but he is judging it from 22 yards.
Yes.
So for him, it was very difficult to probably believe that the ball was going over.
Yeah.
Like it was for every one of us. Like it was basically a thing where you can say that it was a case of suspension of disbelief.
And another thing is, when the Supersports gave the argument, and they were forgetting that was the ball bowled by the spinner, and they were trying to compare the pitch bounce where they were referring the faster. So all those things are coming in place. So my feeling is, as a person in journalism, you guys should also try to, I mean, we are unbiased. Okay, we want to improve the decision making system for global good. Okay, because when it's not that I am Indian and that's why I am very critically reviewing the thing, but this is happening since the Tendulkar and McGrath era. Okay, I am a hardcore cricket fan. I played for my cricket team of REC Surat and IIT Kanpur, and I played cricket. Of course. So the question is, again, we are trying to, I mean, if we are trying to see if there is a gap in the system, we should, and there is a room for improvement, let us improve that. And all of us should, raise the voice so that the community would accept it, the things would come in place, and, whatever those, thin line between good, right and wrong can be removed. So my humble request on behalf of VJTI students to you guys, and of course to the cricketers, and of course to the other people, that let us have something in place.
Absolutely, sir. You have absolutely made a point, and it would be our endeavor to raise those pertinent questions and ask for improvement if and wherever there is room for any, because that's what I believe as journalists we should be doing, and that is, you're absolutely on point. Like, we need to do that. We need to raise the voice as and when, because in this day and age of technology, we cannot have a big margin of error. There will always be the human error. There will always be that human element involved. But at the end of the day, we should try and see as accurate we can get. And for that, if we have to raise voice, if we have to write articles, we need to do that.
In fact, some years back, maybe 15 years back, there was also the strong, voice against the Duckworth-Lewis method, because it has also produced some harms. But Gary is correct that when we implement the system, it is, same for both the teams.
Both teams, yes.
Both the teams. But still, sometimes knowing the pitch, knowing the local weather, knowing the certain historical thing, irrespective of the data, because currently we are using data, but at the same time, everyone wishes his or her boys to become Tendulkar, but we have only one Tendulkar. Okay, exactly. We cannot manufacture cricketers. It's coming from immensely from talent. Irrespective of everything, even you do mechanized thing, and you put the kid through lots of rigor, we cannot produce Virat Kohli or Sachin Tendulkar. It's something else. Now, having said that, to ensure that this is a very fierce competition which is happening even in IPL. We are seeing that even the number 8 team is also giving socks to number 1 team, and as a result, we have reached to the stage where we have to admire now sports rather than the team, or rather, because earlier we had, okay, this is our team, but now slowly we have started admiring the people who are performing for in opposition, and we now applaud the performance. That mindset changing is also happening.
Yes, that shifted mindset is happening. Absolutely. And that's a good thing to happen.
Yes.
Like in this day and age when we can applaud others who are not in sync with us, that's a great trait to have, and that's what makes us better humans.
Yes. So having said that, we should do whatever we can to improve whatever the lacuna or whatever the room, there in the system, to improve and make it equal ground for all. So
absolutely, sir. I couldn't agree more. Like you have actually, what you have said is actually what I wanted to say. That there should be, it should be for all. Like no one should be more than equal.
Yeah.
It's a day and age of equality, I believe. It should be the case.
Okay, so thank you for your time, and
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Aditya,
it's been a privilege, sir, hosting the show for your institution, and it's been so nice. Your students have been very cooperative, and they had sent me all the questions they wanted to ask, and I was really amazed at their in-depth knowledge and the kind of questions they sent, which showed that they had done their homework, which actually made my job easier. I only hosted the program. Maximum bulk of the work had been done by the students, I believe.
Thank you. Yes,
thank you so much, Mr. Kirsten, Kushan sir, and Director sir, for this amazing session. We are honored by your presence today. It was indeed an impactful session, and we are glad to be part of it.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you.
Also, thank you to our lovely audience for tuning in. I am sure all the cricket fans would have enjoyed the session. This is Aditya Asawa and Team Technovanza signing off.
Thank you.
Thank you.